Afternoon. I went to see a film yesterday and I wasn't able to review it straight after. I shall tell you for why. I was on a date. Fancy that. I was chatting to somebody on Bumble and we decided to see each other on Saturday, and he asked what my plans were, and I said, well, all I was planning to do was go and see the Suicide Squad. He said, well, I can come too if that's okay with you. So that's what we did. It was his first trip to the cinema since the original lockdown last March, which blew my mind because I counted and I've seen 10 films since, I've seen 10 different films since cinemas reopened in May, and in the Heights I've actually seen 3 times. So very normal practice for me, very out of the norm for him. I'm not going to review the date, although I have done things like that on this channel before. I'm going to talk about the film. So the film was The Suicide Squad. And a couple of years ago, there was a Suicide Squad film, which I didn't see because I didn't care. Probably was pre the days of me having Limitless. I think if I'd had Limitless then I probably would have checked it out, but it didn't look great. The reviews were awful. I hated the look of Jared Leto's Joker, and I just decided to give it a big old swerve. And I don't regret that decision. And then they took Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn and put her in the film Birds of Prey, which I also haven't seen, but I really need to. And now this. So the only real carryover, as far as I'm aware, from the Suicide Squad film from a few years ago is Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. The premise of the film is similar to the first one, I think, which is that there's a bunch of criminals and villains and supervillains banged up in a prison called Belle Reve. She used to get mentioned quite a lot in Smallville. So obviously a DC prison. And Waller, the Wall, played by Viola Davis, decides to take some of these hardened criminals and says that if they will run a mission for her, a highly dangerous black ops mission, if they are successful and they make it back alive, then they can have time taken off their sentence. And we start with a character called Savant, played by Michael Rooker. There's a handful of other mismatched villains. And they're sent to this island where there's been an uprising. So basically there was a political coup, and the US government are unhappy with the new regime. So they want to get in there. Also, there's something called Project Starfish that they're concerned about, which is also on that island. So they send in the Suicide Squad, so called because they might not make it back. I was wondering if I can balance my phone and put my window up because neighbours just came out into the drive. It's very warm in this car and I've just closed the window. Sweaty. Never mind. So yeah, that's the premise. So you've got Margot Robbie, I already mentioned. You've got Idris Elba, John Cena. Who else is in it? Obviously Sean Gunn's in it because he always is. I mentioned Viola Davis. It's a great cast. And oh my God, this film is so much fun. And it really puts me back in mind of probably the first James Gunn film I saw, which is 2006's Slither. And if you've never seen Slither, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is a really sort of 80s style body horror film starring Michael Rooker. Probably has Sean Gunn in it. It also has Nathan Fillion in it, who was in the Suicide Squad. Elizabeth Banks. And it's about aliens landing in this small American town, and hilarity and horror ensues, and it's so fun, and it's violent, and it's gory, and it's sweary, and it's just great fun. And the James Gunn who made Guardians of the Galaxies Volume 1 and 2, like, I totally see that director from Slither in those films. But what I saw yesterday in Suicide Squad was more true to the spirit of James Gunn, in that he had a 15 certificate this time and he had a lot of fun with it. So you do have bodies being ripped in two. and all manner of other horror going on. There's lots of murdery things, people getting their faces shot off and their heads blown off, but like in a really fun way. And I realise how nuts it sounds when I say stuff like that, the good kind of violence. But yeah, it's just really over the top and obviously quite comic booky and fun. And the 15 certificate means they can swear and they can, blow people's faces off. Idris Elba, I guess, is the central character. He plays a villain called Bloodsport. But the surrounding cast are also superb. John Cena is such a good comic actor. And I don't think he gets enough credit, really, for how well he does absolute deadpan. He's a villain called the Peacemaker. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like, it's a lot of fun. And I think it was about 2 hours, but it's a fun ride. The plot's kind of a little bit flimsy, but it doesn't matter because you're about these characters, and it's really interesting that even though you know they're villains and bad guys, you're kind of rooting for them anyway. And Harley Quinn is so delightful because clearly thick and crackers, but somehow adorable, even though you know she absolutely would, like, shoot you in the face if she had to, even if she didn't have to. If the mood took her, then she would do it. So she's unpredictable, but also fun. I really like this film. I love the Marvel stuff. I'm a huge fan of all things MCU, but this was, obviously this is a DC film anyway, but this was like a bit more like a comic book film for grown-ups. Whereas the Marvel stuff is 12A certificate and it's really a lot more family friendly. This absolutely wasn't. My daughter is 12, nearly 30, well, she's 13 in December. And she was like, oh, I really want to see Suicide Squad. I've seen some of the trailers. I really want to watch it. Can you see what it's like? And we're pretty strict on what the kids watch. But I thought I'll vet it. Within about 10 minutes, I was like, absolutely not. There is no way I'm letting her watch this because it's definitely a 15. But it's a fun 15. So yeah, highly recommended. A lot of fun. I was going to say I also highly recommend my date, but I don't because I don't want other people to go out with him. I liked him. I'd quite like to keep him for myself. So yeah, see Suicide Squad. It was all the fun, super violent, and yeah, very, very, very James Gunn, which is a very good thing. Thanks for watching. Katie out.